This project is inspired by Monet's water lilies. These water lilies are made with these just lines that are vertical and horizontal. Smaller ones are in the background, larger ones are in the foreground. If you're working with your art journal, just go ahead and get out a fresh new paper. Pull out the green because we're going to need that for the lily pads. You can use whatever color you want for your flowers. I like to use two colors that are next to each other on the color wheel to give it a lot of that depth of color that flowers often have. So a lot of flowers, especially water lilies, sort of have two tones. Then at the base of that sort of V pattern, you're going to make an oval around the base of the flower for where the water lily comes out, for the lily pad. All right, let me show you again with some different colors. So I'm just making these vertical and diagonal lines in sort of this V pattern, just sort of these spiky lines, and then I can go over it with another color to give it sort of a double tone, and then loop oval around, and you've got your little lily pad there. Okay. And I'll show you one more time in regular speed, and then I'm going to speed it up so I can show you how to get through the whole project. So again, that V pattern with those spiky lines, because water lilies are kind of a spiky flower. And then grab the green and loop an oval around so it looks like it's sitting inside that lily pad. Color it in really well, neatly and completely. All right, I'm going to go ahead and speed up. I'm going to do some more big ones here in the foreground, and then I'll do some little ones in the background. And as I'm using video editing to speed through the project, you can see how I fill up my water garden with lots of beautiful flowers, using that same technique over and over again. Making sure that I'm coloring in neatly and completely. And then I'll also add some smaller ones further up on the page to show that it's further in the distance. So when we put things at the top of the page and smaller, it shows that it is off in the distance. That's how perspective works. That's how linear perspective works. It's the fancy art name for that. Now make sure that you have your crowns, you keep your crowns nice and organized, that they don't roll away from you. And filling up with water lilies. Okay, so now it's time to paint. So the first thing you're going to do is get nice clean water, and you're going to brush the water onto your paper, because we're going to do what's called a wet on wet technique. So in order to do that, it makes it look very watery even when it's dry. And you're going to paint the whole thing with clean water. And then you're just going to use blue, green, and yellow. Because pond water is kind of algae, it has a little bit of green in it, and you can use that yellow to make that green more of a yellow green, not to look yellow, but to look just to get those different tones of blues and greens. And then you're just going to paint all the background blue with a little bit of green, maybe a tiny bit of yellow, and it's going to look like a pond even after it dries. So you want to kind of paint around your flowers, not over them. If you do paint over them, you can take a little tissue and blot it so that the paint doesn't stick onto your flowers. It just is in the background to look like the water. All right, and when you are all done, yours should look a little something like this.